And b3 by Prag. Just trying for some fresh positions. Pawn to e5. Knight comes out. e3 played by Prag. Alireza pauses a bit, trying to think what line he should go for. Knight f6 is a good move. d5 is possible. Even a6 stopping bishop b5 is possible here. You can see Alireza taking his time. He's trying to figure out what is the best setup he would like to go for. He goes d5 and Prag pins the knight, attacking the pawn on e5, and Alireza plays knight e7. Did he just blunder the pawn? Prag pauses, takes the pawn, but a6. Now you must take the knight, and bishop g3. This is a pawn sack. This has been played before. Amazing preparation here by both players. Prag knows it. Instead of retreating the bishop back to b2, by the way, in this position when queen g5 would have been quite strong, Prag goes back to g3, and here h5, h4 has been played, and you can see Alireza taking his time. He's now a pawn down. He needs to be very careful because white actually has not made any huge compromises. Well, he did give up his bishop, but on the other hand, he's simply a pawn up. What is black's compensation here? Well, Alireza says, my pieces are much better placed, and just this pawn in the center, your knight cannot come out. If you take, I'll take. My knight will be again very well placed. So all of these points giving black some compensation, and in fact the engine assesses this position as 0.0. Wow! Knight e2 attacking the pawn on d4. But it is protected. You can just develop your pieces here. Maybe bishop d6, trading this bishop could be an idea. Getting this bishop out, maybe bishop g4 could be possibility. Bishop f5. He plays bishop e7. A simple move, trying to put pressure on the h4 pawn. For the time being, it's well defended by the rook and the bishop, but later on could be an issue. Here a very nice move for white is c3, forcing black to take a decision with this pawn, and if d3 you can jump with your knight attacking this pawn. These are the possibilities here. Prag taking his time at this moment because I think it's a critical one. He's maybe choosing between this move c3, maybe taking here on d4, taking it with the knight. Many possible options. You can see Alireza so focused. He wants to beat Prag here. And by the way, Alireza has 3 minutes 49 seconds. Prag has taken close to a minute on this move. He takes on d4. That's very logical. It's very logical. And now Firouzja must take back with the knight. He's taking a bit of time just to see if he can sacrifice. Maybe bishop f5 makes some sense. But no, he takes. And now Prag can take here. Queen takes. The rook is attacked. So you put your knight out on c3. But instead, he first develops knight c3. He doesn't take. This gives black an important option, which maybe Prag could have missed. Knight f5, because backward moves are the toughest to see. And it attacks the bishop here, it attacks the pawn here on h4. Finds it. Knight f5 comes on the board, and already black is looking really good, because not only could he recover the pawn here on h4, could even get the other bishop. Knight takes g3. And Praggnanandhaa now in some trouble. He's trying to think what to do. Also, time-wise, he has to manage the clock well. Both players have equal time. He pushes his pawn to d4. Well, one idea is to take here. But after this, you take back with the pawn, bolstering this pawn, and then you are a pawn up. So maybe knight g3 not the best. Maybe knight h4 is the answer here. He takes it. He takes the pawn on h4. Alireza plays this, and now... well, you must take perhaps because g2 is soft. I mean, castling looks so risky because the knight would move. h4 is possible. He takes. Bishop takes h4. And now queen to d3. So the material has evened out. If you think about it, white was a pawn up. Now has lost this pawn on h4. Black has the bishop pair here. He's played his queen to d3. Maybe some threat of check and this bishop being attacked is one idea. Well, not so simple now for Firouzja to continue. How should he play? He goes g6, just strengthening the structure here. And if Pragg gives a check, then he can drop back his bishop. That's the plan. Also, by the way, g6 does prepare bishop f5, hitting the queen here on d3. Very interesting battle here with lot of imbalances. In fact, 2 knights versus 2 bishops now. Look at Alireza there. Check. Comes back with his bishop. Pragg moves his knight forward. He's attacking this bishop here. And now as black, what do you do? Okay, one plan is to go bishop e6. But then I take, queen takes, and maybe just chop off this pawn. This is not something that you would like perhaps. So yes, this b7 pawn is under pressure. Okay, king f8. Maybe just coming out of the pin that he would save the bishop and then trade. And we go into this endgame. Don't know what it is. Should be around equal. These are few possibilities. By the way, knight f6 check could be a threat here. You could also go bishop f5, by the way, attacking the queen. And if he takes, again we reach a similar position here. So many options for Alireza, and he decides to go queen d6, which is interesting. I guess he was just protecting this square here. He's happy to go into an endgame after trades on e7. Pragg has to decide now how should he put pressure, because there is a pin here. There's no point in kind of dissolving it instantly, right? Like if bishop e6, you always have knight e7. So maybe this is the move for Pragg to improve his position. How can he do that? Okay, long castle definitely seems very, very risky in some ways, because you know this a3 square is weak and so on. By the way, time needs to be taken care of. Alireza has 1 minute 59 seconds. Meanwhile, Pragg has gone below 2 minutes for sure now. He's been thinking for almost a minute on this move. And he's still not so sure about what to do. There are possibilities of pushing the pawn to c4. Maybe the knight coming to c3. Oh, Pragg getting a bit fidgety there. Taking the piece in his hand. And he's trying to calculate. Maybe there are also ideas of a rook lift, by the way. Not so silly, you know, just getting the rook up. Oh, you would have loved rook h3, but the bishop is sitting here and attacking it. So that's the problem there. c4 seems like a very logical move, and he plays it. He defends his knight here, keeps the pin intact. And now black needs to decide. Okay, c6 is possible to kick the knight away. Firouzja ready to move his bishop here. He goes bishop f5, hitting the queen. I guess taking now just makes sense. Take. And this position, well, I don't know, king d2 maybe looks roundabout even. Pragg here, what should he do? He goes queen e5. He puts his queen on e5. And he attacks the rook on h8. And so if you take here, pawn takes, that structure changes, and Pragg somehow feels that that structure is better. Alireza takes the queen, pawn takes, oof, the bishop falls, Pragg puts it back, presses the clock, bishop d8. I love this uncompromising move. It's like Alireza saying to Pragg, now I have 2 bishops, you have 2 knights, let's see who's better. c6 could push the knight away on the next move. Then the bishop could come here. The bishop already is beautifully placed. Long castle here on the board. Wow. If you play c6, there is knight f6 check. Take. This looks great for white perhaps. Knight g3, rook he1. The king is in the center. Doesn't look great. Doesn't inspire confidence. So Alireza goes first king f8. And he's going to g7. And notice how he's keeping his rook on h8. Knight to d4. Attacking the bishop on f5. And now, where do you go? You could go back even to c8. Just put all your pieces back on the last rank. This position is still very, very promising for black. But you could also go bishop e4, attacking the g2 pawn and the d5 knight. Alireza goes bishop e4, pawn to f3, and he simply takes it. It's a small nuance. He could have given a check before, because now the king can go to c2. Imagine that when the bishop was here, he had given the check, the king had to go to b2. It's a very small point, but it is an important point. Where will it come into use? I can mention it to you. Now notice if the king was on b2, where would the line be different? Now rook he1, defend this pawn. Alireza is attacking the pawn on e5, and Praggnanandhaa gets his rook into the center of the board. Rook e8, attacking this pawn once again. And now rook e4. Look at this move. Imagine the king on b2, you could take this, because now when you pin it, this is winning for white. But if this was a check, it would have been an entirely different story. That's why chess is so beautiful. It's these little nuances which make all the difference. A check before or a check after. Now anyway, what to do here? Because the bishop cannot take the pawn. So he goes g5. Notice the times on the clock. 28 seconds for Firouzja, 40 seconds for Praggnanandhaa. f4 bishop is now defended. Rook e5 becomes a real threat. He goes e6, pushes the pawn forward. If you take here, knight e6 would be very powerful. So maybe just king g7 getting out of the way. Yes, he plays king g7 here. And Praggnanandhaa, what does he do now? Rook doubling here. No, he goes, yes, he doubles the rook. Rook e1 played. Black does feel a little bit cramped. h4 should be a good move, but f6 allowing this protected passer cannot be good. Cannot be good. Now rook f4 is an amazing exchange sacrifice, getting your king here. Knight f5, king f4. Will Pragg play it? It's a very, very nice move. It's in fact a great positional sacrifice. But he goes g3. You can't take here because of knight f5 check. Bishop goes back. f4 pushed forward. He takes the knight. Rook takes d4. And now h4 is good. King g6. No, h4 was better. He goes king d3. Suddenly, white is just better. After king g6, this one move that he played, h4, chop. He chops the pawn on g5. Alireza chops it back. Pawn takes pawn. Rook takes. And now takes. Pawn takes. He goes king e4. Look at the white king. It's an amazing king. Black puts his rook behind the passed pawn here. But these pawns are super strong. And now king e5 and d6. In fact, d6 even here. King d5. It's an amazing position, guys. King takes d6. And look at this e-pawn. It's equal material. h2. He wants to queen here. But d7. The thing is, if you queen, I take and I make my own queen. So king f7, king d7. Threatening rook f1 check. Alireza resigns. What a game this was. What a smooth finish there by Praggnanandhaa. Equal material on the board. 3 pawns for both sides. But Pragg managed to convert that endgame, his 9th.